Hello, YouTube. Wanted to make this quick video. I saw something not too long ago that really started sparking some thoughts in me, just about the idea of reaching rock bottom in order to like actually make a change in your life and trying to rely on that to be your motivation to carry forward, and why I think that's actually very counterproductive at the most, and also just not helpful, in general at the least. Um, There's this interview with this young woman who was talking about a time where she was really just used to getting plastered off of alcohol, getting super drunk because she was severely addicted to it. And, she'd go out for drinks all the time. She would drink a lot in the morning, just random times of the day. And to her, it wasn't really a big deal. Um, and she kind of went to work one day, thought she was feeling hangover, just kind of feeling like shit. And her boss kind of pulls her to the side and is like, "Are you okay? Because you don't look okay." And she's like, "Why? Why don't what do you mean I don't look okay?" He's like, "You're yellow." Which, I've the only reason I know this is because I've had a cat that had liver failure, but like literally when your eyes start to turn yellow or like your pigmentation, it's like a sign of liver failure. Um, and basically all this alcohol just destroyed her liver, and she was in active liver failure and didn't know it. She went to urgent care where they're like, "You got to go to a hospital." Went to a hospital, they're like, "Nah, you got to go to a bigger center that has more facilities." Basically was just like the start of like what you would think is like the end of somebody's life. She's getting examined, tests aren't coming back positive each and each day. She's just getting worse and worse, and it gets to a point where they have to put her in an induced coma, hoping that her liver will start to repair itself, but it's not. And so the doctors tell her parents, "Your daughter's not going to make it." And she's basically like in the process of like they get her out of the coma so she could do like these last rites and all these things, delegate certain things she has like apartment, this, that, to certain people in her family or whatnot. And long story short, I guess like by miracle, she just starts to make recovery, right? And it's it's one of those things where she talked about she was basically free from alcohol after that because this experience scared her so much. The doctors were like, "You need to get like actual psychological and physical help. Like you need to go see a therapist or somebody licensed. You need to get actual help to ensure that you don't go back down this path because that could mean death." Basically what happened to her, she got really lucky. And she was like, "Yeah, yeah." She kind of brushed it off, you know. And because of like, feeling scared of like what this did to her, she stayed away from alcohol, told herself she wasn't going to do it for a long ass time. She says for a year and a half. Um, and then basically, when you're staying away from something for a long time, like in the beginning, it feels really good. Maybe even like a half a year in, you're just like, "I'm never going back." Like you feel this level of like arrogance and confidence of like, "I would never do that to myself again." And then when like actual time starts to pass, 7, 8 months, you start to become like maybe like in the back of in your mind, these thoughts of like maybe I could go back to my old habit, just not as bad. Like the typical thing your brain does, you know, for some reason, just experimenting, wanting to go back to things just to see if it was as bad as you thought it was. Um, and the thing is, like, there's no such thing as doing things in like a healthy moderation when it comes to addicts. If you are addicted to something, unpopular opinion, you're addicted. Um, and at some point, that addiction will start to take over, and you won't have control over, you'll start to lose yourself. You'll start to realize, for some reason, my body's like really making it hard for me to avoid this, like I could try to avoid doing certain things, drinking, but like there'll be a certain time of the day where I just really have an urge to drink, and I, I could try to ignore it, but it's just for some reason it's an itch that's bothering me that I notice that I can't get my mind off of. And obviously, the more and more you think about it, the more and more your brain just tries to rationalize giving into it. Basically, she gave back into it, and it was one of those things where like she was so embarrassed to tell her family about it, to tell her, more specifically her parents, like, She'd been trying to find a way as she was indulging back in this addiction to tell her parents, like, I'm going to get back to drinking, just not as much, because I would never do that to myself. But in secrecy, she's drinking like crazy again. She's drinking a lot. She's partying days on end, you know? And so it's just like, as much as my main thing that I took away from that interview that I thought was interesting, and the reason why I wanted to make this video, was this idea that as addicts, a lot of people tend to try to use this idea of like a rock bottom as kind of like a way out, like a cop out of like trying to get actual help, like traumatizing yourself to the point of like almost dying. You almost died. And you're staying away from it for a little bit, but you're not developing necessary steps to understand, number one, what this thing did to you psychologically, what it was doing to your brain physically, developing healthy habits so to ensure that you would never get back into this, a routine. Like, there's certain things that you need to actively be doing, because your brain, at the end of the day, it's a prediction machine. No matter what you've been through, if you start feeding your brain certain things again, it's going to accustom itself to those things. It gets a lot of dopamine from, drinking, from smoking, from watching porn. Then it's like, okay, that's an easy way. I don't need to get it from being outside all the time. Maybe instead of, all the times I spend going outside, how about on the times that I usually do that, I get urges to watch porn because I want dopamine, and this gives me a lot of it, and it feels good, But yeah, I just thought that was interesting because I related to it a lot. I struggled with, pornography, and I hit a rock bottom at one point, really bad. It led to me having extreme panic attacks. In 2022, I was basically very close to like having to take myself into like getting psychologically evaluated in a 72-hour kind of like hold type of facility. My anxiety was so bad. It was 2021. It was during COVID. I lost like 60 pounds. I was looking malnourished. I like had separational anxiety. Like, just because of like all these years of repressed feelings and guilt and shame from all these years of watching porn and beating myself over it, to like when I actually started making progress, when I started to feel good and my brain was unraveling all the things I had been doing to it over the years, that it had all of those side effects, and I wasn't able to like understand that I needed actual help at that time. Thankfully, at the time, I was opening up to my mom about it, who became my accountability partner. But like, it was just like a tough thing to go through, and a lot of it was me dealing with it on my own. And I think one of the worst things about this addiction as well with porn is like literally it can't kill you. Sure, it can make you feel like shit. It could cause erectile dysfunction, for certain people. It could do a lot of things, but it can't kill you. There's no amount of porn that you would watch that would cause you to overdose. Like, you understand? Like, that's why I believe also it's like super dangerous. And for somebody who's addicted, like, at least with drinking, there's a point where you become blackout drunk, right? And your body just like shuts down. And with porn, it's like there isn't that. There's literally there are extremes that you could get to, and yeah, it'll ruin your whole day, your whole focus, your whole energy. All that will be fucked. But you could still give in, and it's like it's an insane amount of dopamine that you're feeding your brain. And yeah, for some people, just getting to that extreme can be a rock bottom. But I promise you that on its own is not going to help you become a better person and quit your habits. So yeah, it was something that was interesting to me because I've never heard an addict really talk about that necessarily. And I think it's across the board true for just any type of addiction. This idea that you could hit a rock bottom, but that's not the end, and even when hitting those rock bottoms, even people who almost died, they'll stay away from things for like a year or 5 years and end up going back because they didn't do the real work. So, yeah.